I'm Jonah Comstock, Editor-in-Chief of Pharma and I'm here with Maria Whitman, Global Head of Commercialization and Strategies at ZS, or ZS, as my British colleagues would say.
That is true.
We're at Reuters Pharma USA in Philadelphia, and Maria actually just recently got off the stage giving her presentation. So talk to me a little bit about your role at ZS and what you do.
Sure. I think at ZS, our mission is actually to advance global health. So we work across the healthcare system with all the different stakeholders with the goal of helping them improve their business models so that we can actually reach more patients and advance the healthcare system. I have spent a long time working in the biopharma and the life sciences sector more broadly. I used to actually run our industry globally, but now I'm spending a lot of time on the transformation of commercial organizations across healthcare and actually outside of healthcare as well. So I work in our other industries as well. So that means everything from preparing a product to market, to launching it, achieving value for it, growing it in the market, engaging with customers, all the way through to loss of exclusivity or market exit.
So I watched your presentation.
Yeah.
I live blogged it. I remember I really enjoyed it. At this moment, my conference brain is making me completely forget what it was about. So give us the quick summary, and we can get into it a little more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the conference theme is about forging a new identity in health and really catalyzing a revolution so we can help more patients. So the tone I was taking was that the DNA of pharma actually needs to change in how we operate commercially if we want to actually have more impact on patients and be deeper integrated players in the system. And so my talk was really about driving some urgency around that from a patient and from a business perspective, and then starting to give the audience a sense of what a new vision could be and how we can actually achieve it.
Yes, now I remember. You were talking about really kind of blowing up the traditional idea of the rep and what their role is, and whether we have to really take a hard look at that, and is it still serving us, right?
Yeah, that's a really key part of the equation. It's not the only part, and it's perhaps not the most important.
It was one of three, I think.
Yeah, it was one of three things. But here's the reality: we have spent decades building our model around this concept of rep at the center. The rep is the relationship owner with the customer, because I'm the in-person person that's actually taking care of your needs, and I coordinate and I bring all these other channels with me. And in doing that, it served us well when we were a truly face-to-face industry. But here's the reality: people are changing, how we engage is changing. We don't need face-to-face, we don't want face-to-face all the time. As access is decreasing, yes, the ROI is still high, but we have to ask ourselves some really serious questions about when is the rep most valuable? And when are all the other channels that we've built, medical and liaisons, access, reimbursement reps, omni-channel capabilities, when do these things actually serve our customers better? And we have to kind of break away from this concept at rep at the center and say rep is an important but part of many channels, and we can meet our customers where they are in the way that will work best for them. And if we can think that way, we can unbundle the rep, we can take them out of the center, then the customer ownership can start to be with the organization. And when the customer ownership is with the organization, that's when we actually become customer-centric.
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised the slide that you showed about how much a rep does, like how many jobs they do.
Many activities, yeah. Right? Yeah.
And so the notion that you could maybe allow them to focus on the ones that are the most key and have other channels, digital channels, other field workers, specialize in other aspects.
Yes.
It makes a lot of sense. It sort of seems like the way that a lot of sales has evolved in the last, 5, 10, 20 years.
Absolutely. And, sales reps can still be really important. They can still have clinical conversations, even though that's not what customers want most of the time from them. And we can choose to deploy them. Like, let's say we're launching a new product. I mean, you really do need some face-to-face attention to kind of get your product top of mind, to really start to talk about the features and benefits. Or in a category where we still have a very competitive market, high share of voice is actually a thing you need. Then if you're in immunology, it makes sense to deploy reps more often. But here's the reality: we have less and less blockbusters in the industry. We have less products that are more than 500 million. I was showing the audience that 85% of all the launches in the next 3 years are less than 500 million. Most of them are 200 million. So when we start having that, you also have to think about how do we effectively deploy in smart ways. And the reps, sales and marketing is 50% of all SG&A spend in pharma. So if we can start to bring that down and more smartly deploy where we need it and where the customer needs it, then everybody's going to win.
And the decline of blockbusters is a reallocation, right? So you're replacing one huge drug with several smaller niche drugs. So then you need people who know all about these increasingly complex therapies who can actually effectively sell them. You start to see how the traditional model might not be up for it.
You know, the science is amazing right now. We have gotten so much more personalized, so much targeted. I am super passionate about spaces in oncology, cell and gene therapies, where we're talking about really truly targeted minute patient populations. And you are correct. There has definitely been a movement towards more targeted therapies. And it makes sense, right? The science is telling us more about the diseases. We can do more to make sure that drugs actually impact certain types of patients. Now, the other thing that's happened is AI-based medical discovery, right? So if we look at really what's happening at the front end of research, there's two big use cases for AI in pharma right now. One is biomedical discovery, and it is creating such a proliferation of what is possible in these targeted levels that, yes, you're seeing a lot more investment in that way. We are about to release some research that actually shows that if you can work through an asset's core potential and generate at least 3 indications out of it, you may have the potential to still do a blockbuster. And so we're starting to see that. So part of the question for pharma is not just, how do I deploy smaller assets, but it's how do I start to think more about my scientific discovery as a platform? If I am able to affect one aspect of the disease, does it work across multiple tumors? Can I shift it and change it into another disease altogether? Can I be disease agnostic? And that is a difficult concept for pharma in some ways, in traditional pharma, because we're used to very much a singular asset with a singular goal running through the system, right? That's why everybody's looking at companies like Moderna and saying it is possible to think about a platform, but it's going to take some time and change.
And that kind of a blockbuster is not going to operate the same way as the blockbusters of yore, because you have to market it almost in 3 different indications. It's almost like marketing 3 different drugs, right? In some ways.
Absolutely. But what we were talking about today, which I think is so cool, is if you think about that, even though you have a diverse product portfolio, your product portfolio, by virtue of intersecting in the healthcare system, if you show up as one company, your opportunity to affect the journeys of patients in each of those indications in more places increases. So it goes back to this idea of when we remove the customer orientation from the rep, that customer ownership, if we bring it back into the organization, can we actually think portfolio? Can we think customer? And can we start doing more with that varied set of channels so that we can increase the aperture of where we play for any one of those journeys and support our customers with more of the challenges along the way? And I think if we can get there, pharma has a chance to actually play a much more integrated role in the system and really expand the journey for patients.
So our next deep dive magazine is on market access. So I'm asking everyone kind of a big question about market access, and we'll do like a quote roundup on it.
Okay.
So what do you think are the most important, exciting, interesting, either technologies or trends that are going to affect market access and how patients get access to medications?
Access, so you're talking about market access as access to therapies, not necessarily the pricing part of market access, or are you covering both?
Kind of both.
Kind of both.
Take it which way you will.
I think 2023 was an inflection year in global policy. Here in the US, we tend to focus on IRA, but if you really look at what happened globally, a lot of movement to suppress pricing, in part for access increasing, especially in countries that have limited budgets, but also challenging the nature of, can I launch in some places and not others, right? If you look at what's happening across Europe, there's question now of, if you want to be here, if you want to access patients in some of these large countries, you need to go everywhere. And that's an important thing, I think. And I think pharma in general wants to be in as many places as it can in service to patients. One thing COVID did do is it forced us to really think about global allocation differently. It forced us to think about pathways to delivery of medicines in much more acute ways. So I think as an industry, we're heading there, that we need to find kind of the right balance of both access physically and access through pricing. I think that the challenge is always easier in smaller countries, when you have a limited population than it is in truly dispersed systems like the US.
Sure.
And one of the things that I worry about as we look at some of the policies, for all the good they're doing, they're also challenging as well. So if we look at IRA here in the US, cap on patient out of pocket, great thing. Redistribution of who's handling catastrophic coverage, great thing, except a lot of it's going to the plans. And that's great. They're absorbing some of the risk, as they should. But what we're also starting to see is 2024 and 2025 benefit design is happening, is that's changing how they're thinking about access at different tiers of different medications. So I think that every move we make with respect to access has ripple effects in other ways. And it really takes a lot. Our system is very annual focused, but it really takes a lot and many, many different minds to come together to figure out what are those ripples and how do we tackle each of them in a way that we are actually moving the needle to all patients getting what they need when they need it.
Yeah, it really feels like that kind of traditional idea of disruption, right? That you have to sort of break something, put it back together before you can really make a big improvement. And that's where we are with drug pricing. It's not going to be an easy road to get to where I think everyone wants to go, where the access is more available.
Absolutely. And, we all, I think, believe in the concept of outcomes-based pricing and value-based care. I think that the reality is we also need to then bring the thinking of the in-market agreements we can make back into clinical trials, right? What are we actually tracking? How can we actually prove and come up with the right markers to say this is truly working for patients? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of collaboration cross-functionally. It's a lot of collaboration for the industry, for regulators like the FDA, for payers. We all have to find a different way to come together if we really want to solve the access challenges.
So we're early in day one of the conference.
Yeah.
So it's not time for the, what's the most interesting thing you've heard question necessarily. Yeah. Although you've got one. Good. But what are you on the lookout for here? What are you hoping to learn more about? What conversations are you excited about?
I'm someone who really cares about changing patients' lives. And so I do get excited when we lead, as we did this morning with Alexander Hardy with my presentation, even the DEI presentations, when we lead with the concept of truly putting the patient at the center. And I do think we cannot leave a conference like this without really talking about equity. But what I'm looking for and what started to come up in our last two panels was the question of accountability. Because I think that patient centricity, health equity, these things come in waves. And without sustainable business cases and without accountability through metrics to continue to push for the causes, I think we make progress, but we don't go far enough. And so, this is why I was talking about in examples like Microsoft, when they go customer centric, they actually changed their business model from long-term lifetime memberships to annual subscriptions.
Yes, that was really interesting.
Yeah, when you do that kind of thing, you're saying, hey, the experience every day on the ground matters. It matters to how customers are going to stay customers or how I'm going to generate new customers. And I think that that's the kind of creative changes, the out-of-box things we have to think about if we truly want to affect change around equity and around putting patients at the center. So I'm ready for enough talk. Let's get it into action and let's change the model.
I think that's fantastic. And I mean, events like this can be really good for that, right? Because you share best practices, you collaborate. You do have to have that accountability and you have to have that commitment to action and not just conversation, right?
Yeah, and we have the right starting point. I have found in my 20 plus years in this industry that everyone truly is very passionate about that goal. We get in our own way. So I am excited to listen to those nuggets, to see different companies making leaps and bounds, whether it's clinical trials, whether it's in their commercial actions. Recently on the podcast, I had someone actually who was talking about how they're taking the concept of equity strategy and embedding it into every commercial decision. It's now part of their marketing process. That's the kind of change we need to see.
Cool. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Maria. Very interesting stuff.
It was so nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.